Good morning, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the energies for the week ahead on the 10th of February with today's Monday's Musings. I just started the video talking about all the many reasons why my hair was all over the place, why my skin was very shiny, why my eyes looked very puffy, why I looked tired. All of these reasons, right, for being in the condition or conditioning actually that I find myself this morning. Now there is a valid reason. I have spent the last few days playing dress up, going to my niece's birthday party dressed as a Disney princess, as Esmeralda actually, which has opened a whole pathway into what it would have been like to have connected as my ancestors once did, as that lineage is in my own line. However, the reaction of my skin, the reaction of my hair, the reaction of my appearance as a result of being something that I'm not is palpable on me today, not only in the image that you see in this camera, but also the way that I can't control any of it. My hair is doing whatever it wants, but also how tired I feel, having scrubbed, and I mean scrubbed, the makeup off of my face that I had on yesterday. I share that because as we lead into the full moon this Wednesday in Leo, we are going to feel the loyalty, the disconnection, the almost split within ourselves, the fragments within ourselves, where we have played roles that are now no longer necessary, where we have played our part in things that needed to unravel, and the choices that we are being faced with this week, whether or not we choose to take those forward, or rather what aspects we choose to take forward. So I'm still wearing the earrings that I wore, I'm still wearing the bracelets that I wore, because I love that. I love the, what is it I love? And that's the thing, isn't it, this week, really feeling into what it is we love about what we choose to take forward. Okay, so I love the way that the bracelets sound on my wrists. I love the music that I make when I walk. I love the big hooped earrings in my ears, because they are, one, I feel they complement my face, but also they go against the grain of what I would assume someone reading tarot or whatever would actually appear. Or do they? There's an element there of going back to what we do historically. So obviously the cliche stereotypical version of the tarot reader is a, for want of a better phrase, and I mean no disrespect when I say this, the word gypsy or fortune teller. And this is who I dressed up as the weekend, but it's also part of who I am ancestrally, but also what I provide and what I do. It's run in my blood for decades, centuries. Feeling into that this week, what is it that is at the very core of what is rising in the roles that we play, and the choices there of what we then choose to take forward as a result? Some of the guidance that came through this morning was really recognizing our own individual uniqueness. And this is something we all talk about, but how unique are we? How individual are we being in our lives? It can be very easy to put on our uniform and step into what we quote unquote do when it comes to work. However, as the years go on, what we do as a job is going to be really reflected back into who we are. Any misalignment with that is going to come from this week onwards, particularly throughout the year, come to the forefront to be seen. The moment we can acknowledge and embody our deepest essence, it becomes who we are. It becomes what we offer. There becomes less separation. That's really important in the year of the Hermit when we're talking about our light guiding us forward and helping others to see the way. Well, they can't see the way if we do not see ourselves. They cannot see the way forward. We cannot see our way forward if we do not see the light that guides that, which is us, our essence, who we are down to the core. Not just our job, not just the roles we play, but the energy that runs through it all. Feeling into that this week with the full moon in Leo, it's going to come from a heart space, obviously, but this is deeper than that. And I encourage people to go a little bit further than what they're feeling. If you want different results, take that extra step. Some of the guidance, or most of the guidance as we led into 2025, was to take that extra step into our subconscious, to go that little bit further. An example, the last few weekends, there's been a lot of insights coming in as they would normally, how I would normally see the world, how I interpret the messages, but there's been a invitation to go beyond that, to bring it forward into something more expansive now. Why? Because then we get to see our own expansion also. We may find this week there's a tiredness. I mean, I can definitely feel it, but a tiredness rising in regards to our place here. A tiredness in regards to where we may find ourselves fitting in with the narrative, because we may not. And it's a real encouragement here to feel into what we're tired of seeing in our own actions, in our own beliefs, and as a result, the perception we have of ourselves. Anything else to add to that? No. No, it can be as complicated or as simple as we like this week. There are going to be multitudes of opportunities to see so many different messages coming through, but they're all an invitation to see yourself. They're all a initiation, even as we head into the spring equinox, an initiation to see how you see yourself. We very often carry narratives and stories of those that have gone before us, which is great, but really washing ourselves clean of that this week in particular, not to get rid of, but to find our own way. That feels quite important. It's not about getting rid of. It's not about shifting or healing or changing. It's about fine-tuning, redefining. There's a lot of pain being caused in the separation of who we are in our careers, who we are in relationships, who we are, on our own, and how different we are with other people. Now, that I'm going to personally say is a personal thing. I'm hearing a big amount of guidance actually to encourage us to bring them all together. However, I recognize, being human, how difficult that can be and how vulnerable that can be. That is the opportunity. Can we be the coach, the healer, the artist, the I hear crazy person in my case? Can we be all of these things in all areas of our life? Or are we having to contract ourselves and expand ourselves in places where we feel safe? This week, seeking out as many opportunities to be as expansive as we can, so that we remember who we are. A lot of things externally are really highly charged at the moment, are really heavy, are really triggering, are really wounding a lot of us, because we're doing and seeing from a smaller place than what we're capable of. Now, that's an invitation. Take it, leave it. If it resonates, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And that very much is the energy that we're being faced with. It's not that we have to do these things, but things are going to be bloody difficult and continue to be difficult if we do not stand in our unique, full version. They're going to feel very out of our own control. Even with myself there, you see, right? I'm trying to add more to it than is needed. Feeling into where that comes from. For me personally, to add more than is needed, it's a multifaceted reaction of, first and foremost, not trusting the information that I'm receiving, but also trying to ensure that everybody can understand what it is I'm trying to convey. Recognizing this week that isn't our job. How people understand things, perceive things, act on things is their own prerogative. The more we can stand in ourselves and be who we are, grounded in who we are, the easier that is going to be. We have this common misconception of what it means to hold space. Holding space for yourself, standing in who you are, gives others permission to do the same, to be whoever they are in that present moment. It isn't about holding them this week. It is about holding you. Okay. So energies this week, and looking at where we may not feel we trust that. Where we may feel that we don't even know what that exists, what that means, what that actually encompasses. Too often we can hold space for others, or be what others expect of us, or stand into what we perceive ourselves to be. It can be very, very limited. And this week we're being offered the opportunity to see beyond that. So let's see beyond that. Energies this week and how to navigate it. Identifying that we all do things differently. Okay, you may find this week a lot of people doing the same things but differently, and that's the whole point of it. We have judgment underneath. However, can we accept that? Can we accept that, for argument's sake, tarot readers will read the tarot differently, healers will heal differently, gardeners garden different, artists create differently? Can we accept that in ourselves, or is there judgment there? Where does that judgment come from? We live in an incredibly colourful world where there are many different versions of the same thing, many notes played by many different musical instruments in this incredible united verse. I've said it before and I'll say it again. When saxophones try to be guitars, metaphorically speaking, it may not always work. Okay, it's a different song sheet, it's a different way of reading music, it's a different approach to that. Okay, so yes, of course, at one point in our life we become musicians of all of our abilities and all of our skill set, but recognizing why we may try to be something that we're not this week, and the judgments that are behind that, the judgments in how we see ourselves in comparison to others that are behind that. It feels as if they're coming full circle. And on this card, this deck is the Tarot of Dreams by Cairo Marchetti. On this card, the circle with which the judgments are rising, the repetitive cycles that are coming up, are all coming from the third eye, and they're coming from the element of fire here. So the ability to transform and transmute any repetitive scenarios this week is going to be in our ability to perceive things. It's going to be in how we choose to see things. Are we doing so from a constricted place or an expansive place? An example I always give, when you think of the iris in the eye, when you think of the eye structure, when it constricts down, it lets less light in. Okay, it adjusts the amount of light that comes in. I need to really think about that. It adjusts the amount of light that comes in. So what's happening when we constrict? How is that making the amount of light that we can see, the amount of light that comes into our body? What effect is that having? What happens when we expand in comparison to that? How we see the world is based on the amount of light that we allow into the filaments of our eyes. There was an experiment done on social media some time ago where people would see the blue dress, some people would see the black dress, and it was all based on the amount of light that can get into the filaments of the eyes. And that is determined by how expansive or constricted those eyes are. So this week, if you're struggling to find the light in something, how expansive are you being? How constricted are you being with yourself in particular as those judgments rise? Because these judgments rise as a call to not better ourselves, but go beyond what we know, ourselves included. So if we want those cycles to finish this week, are we being bigger than them? Or are we smack bam in the middle of them? Are we involved in them? What do we need to do? Do we need to go within? Do we need to expand? This is the year of the hermit. If things are difficult, if you're finding things enduring, maybe it's a time to rest. If you're not, then maybe it's a time to get out there, but really honing in on what you're feeling. And more importantly, the judgments behind your feelings this week are going to be pivotal in how you see not only the world around you, but yourself. Why is that so important? I cannot stress this enough. This year, there is a massive upgrade in regards to the difference between psychic energy and seer energy. It is to do with the filaments, the light filaments in our eyes, but also in our brain neural pathways. So it is one thing to see what could happen. It is another thing to see and interact as you are being asked to do. That is the invitation for us all. However, there is a great responsibility there to ensure that you are seeing things from the most expansive potential that you can. Because when we try and change things from a darker perspective, we're not reaching that full potential. I hear a lot of people talking about 7D and 3D, and this is this is unique for everybody, an individual for everybody, and I'm only sharing the guidance that I've been given. If you want to see, they're all lattices. Dimensions are lattices, one on top of the other. If you want to see something in a more 7D perspective, it's about how much you can embody every lattice, how much you can be present in every energy, to see the sadness, to see the pain, to see the light, the fear, the anger, the darkness, the potential, to embody all aspects of that within ourselves and then truly see. It's the difference between a picture and a physical, tangible result this week. It's the difference between vision and action. It's the difference between what we would like and what we actually get this week, but also particularly as we lead into the year ahead. What are we seeing? Where are we seeing it from? And what is the impact on the universe around us? Can we step now, minus the judgments, into the even, we're not always going to get it quote unquote right. That's part of the learning process. There's no point berating ourselves thinking I should have seen that from that perspective. There's no point in that. It's all a learning curve. It's more about having the awareness of the impact that we're having on what we're seeing and the world that we're creating for ourselves and then for others as a result. Awareness is key. And when we have that awareness, that actually shifts a lot this week. Take a moment. Embody fully what is going on for you on all levels. 3D and 7D are one and the same. They're just different densities of the same reality. Embodying, everything that is going on, feeling everything that is going on, allowing the light into all aspects of that. Then seeing what is occurring for you. Multifaceted. We're all multifaceted humans here. Okay, we're all going to be feeling and sensing different things. Expand the view you have of yourself with some curiosity. There is more to discover about your own light. Anyway, I was going to do a reading this week into the whole week ahead, but okay, so let's break. Oh, I knew I was going to drop some cards on the floor this morning. Okay, what did we drop? The 6 of Coins and the Queen of Swords and the World card. Okay, so that can be really interesting, can't it, when we discover more, but how do we then fit in the world around us? How do we then connect to a different mindset based on what we give and what we receive? Once we've expanded our vision, well, there's a card underneath and it's the Moon card. When I see this, it reminds me of the story of which wolf to feed. Now, I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of where that story came from, because there's some views that it's a tribal, indigenous tale, and then there's other views that it actually didn't come around until the 60s. So there's a need for discernment based on the structures that you live your life by this week. They may not be as solid as you think. They may not be as relevant to you anymore as you think. So an example, I've written a blog for the Full Moon Wednesday, and I've based it around a way of being that my mother used to have when she was here, a very strong, beautiful way of being. And my whole life was based around that, the ability to keep getting back up. But actually, as I mature, I can feel into the conflict that I would have with not being the same as my mother. And that's coming to light this week, that's not a structure I want to build my life on. And the judgments that rise with that. This week, it's not about being better than or worse than, or it's just evolution, baby. It's just evolution. We all have this opportunity to expand and to grow and to figure things out in our own way with the guidance and support of others, not the whole path. When we think about the Hermit, it's not about following the path of another, but finding your own. Okay, now that can bring up the other part that we may face this week, which is a sense of loneliness. Again, I've written about it in this week's blog, and I'll put a link to it in the comments. That is multifaceted. It is about the Hermit energy. We also have, I think it's on the 22 portal, there's a gateway in relation to a particular star, which I've written about. It's gone from my memory at the moment, but it's a star that actually sits on its own and can be visible on its own. And there's a wonderful invitation there to see what we bring to the table, what we bring to the path ahead, what light we bring to the situation, purely by stepping back and witnessing it ourselves first, and not falling into the temptation of the misinterpretation of what it means to be alone and loneliness. That really may come to the forefront this week for the illusion that it is. Okay, because we have the wild card, right? How can we be alone in when we truly see the world as united? How can we be alone in that? Okay, right. We can be different. We can be different. And recognizing the judgments actually that come from feeling different. It's human nature to want to belong. It's human nature to want to fit in. But that comes from a place of survival. That comes from a place of fear. Okay, so we believe that that's all humans are here for, is to belong to, a group, a particular community. But within that community is about respecting our differences as well, belonging to ourselves. Okay, that's where I feel a real need to almost go back into cliches. So watch that this week. Watch why we may be going back into cliches. Cliche type energy. I dressed up as a fairy princess, right? Over the weekend. So yeah, what is the happy ending to us? What is the fairy tale? I was talking to my husband the other day, and for me, the princesses, the feminine or whatever in the fairy tale are just looking for a masculine energy that's certain. Okay, we feel so much safer, don't we, regardless of gender, when we feel certain in what it is we want. And that's what this week is all about, an opportunity to really feel into what it is you want, because when we discover that, we discover who we are as well. So if we don't know what we want, maybe it's more about reflecting on who we are and any feelings that rise with that. Okay, energy for this week. There is an excitement there. Yeah, I'm not surprised to see the strength card. And actually, there is an excitement there, but the strength card is upside down. There is a temptation to turn things on its head this week, to go in guns a-blazing, but actually the excitement there is uncertainty. Also, go gently, go softly. Strength doesn't always mean going in guns a-blazing. It can just be compassion, to listen to what is going on, to feel into the excitement, the fear, the not knowing that could be occurring this week. Okay, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Overall, there is overcrowding this week. There is overcrowding and choices to be made. A lot of the cards are upside down. Everything feels quite squashed up. Let me move things out of the way. It is an opportunity to sort through emotions, situations, relationships, purely by lining ourselves up, purely by aligning to any decisions that we feel need to be made. Do they? So really sensing into that. And there's tiredness there. It feels almost as if trying to figure things out when it hasn't been perhaps ready or needed. And I felt a little bit of apprehension saying needed, because who am I to say what choices are needed? And that's the thing this week. Who are you to say what decisions need to be made? Well, only you can answer that. If something isn't working for you and you are involved in something, then you're a valid member of that. And you also need your needs met. So you're actually an integral part of the decisions that need to be made this week. Really feeling into that. So often, particularly in the spiritual arena, I hear people say, I just turn up and do what is asked of me. And I've said it before as well, but actually you're still an important part of the team. Okay, so recognizing your place in the team this week is going to flip things. It's going to turn the narrative. Acknowledging your perception of yourself in the vision is going to shift that. So on the Monday, that's upside down. That's a bit skew-if, or it can feel that it's a bit skew-if. It can feel as if not having the certainty mentally where to go. But what that's doing is giving us an opportunity to mature emotionally. We have the Page of Swords. There's an opportunity there to come down into the body. So if the mind is chaotic and it doesn't know what's going on, come down into the body. Recognize that's a great tool of divination, of the divine within you. Okay, on the Tuesday, that brings forth the Emperor, but again, the Emperor is reversed. So it's not necessarily a time of acting on those emotions, or at least recognizing that by acknowledging the emotions, you are acting on them. Sometimes we get really caught up in, right, there are choices I need to make. This is what my body's telling me, particularly if we're caught in fight or flight, right? Big emphasis this year on the ability to communicate and to listen. Huge, huge, huge misunderstanding that means with our ears. Massive misunderstanding, or at least a lack of depth and perception. What that's actually about is an invitation to listen fully with our bodies, not just our ears, but more importantly, our root chakra, to listen. How grounded can we be within our body and the information that's coming through, not only from us, but what we're picking up from the earth and from each other. Acknowledging that listening itself is an action. Probably one of the most divine actions that we can have this year is to listen, particularly with the heart. That is going to lead to massive transformations, which is what we are facing this week as the only, let me double check, the only upright card this week on the Wednesday is the Tower card, which is on the full moon in Leo. So those massive lightning bolt inspirations that are going to come through, that are going to say, do you know, this is enough. Yeah, we may feel as if our head is all over the place. We may not feel as if we know what to do and how to change things. But come Wednesday, by being with our body, by feeling into what is going on, I'm just thinking I have a physiotherapy appointment Wednesday, and they're going to look at my back, and I just know they're going to kick my ass into gear to get things sorted, because if it doesn't, come Wednesday, you may be made aware of some no going back points, some blessings in disguise that say, do you know what? This can't carry on the way it is. You've known this, but now here we are as an external reflection that actually something has to change here, or something is changing here. On the Thursday, we then have the Hanged Man. The Hanged Man is reversed in this card, but because he's reversed, he's actually upright. So even though it may feel as if things are upside down, it's an opportunity to truly see what is going on this week. It's an opportunity to bridge almost the difference between where we are and where we would like to be. On the Friday, we have the Queen of Swords, who is also reversed. What I sense there is it's not about cutting through things. It's not about being swift, direct. Be mindful of the boundaries that are put in place and the mentality that they're coming from on the Friday. It's not about that. It's about bringing our ideas down to our physical reality. Okay, so how do we do that? We take responsibility for them. We take responsibility for the awareness that is now inviting us to make whatever choices we need to make on a physical level. Okay, if we want to mature from the Monday to the Friday, it is about allowing ourselves to feel these things, but taking responsibility for them as well. There's a big difference between self-awareness and self-management. The Hanged Man here is upside down. It's not about gaining any more perspectives. And we may find that in the repetitive cycles that come up this week, they can become quite frustrating because, the beginning of this reading, it is an opportunity here to finally see ourselves as the initiator of some of these repetitions, because we're not quite getting the bigger picture of who we are and what is occurring here. On the Saturday, yes, that's going to cause some conflict, or it's going to cause what we think would be conflict, but actually remembering that conflict is our body's way of saying something's not quite right here. Appreciating conflict for the wisdom that brings, the turning point that brings. So often, myself included, I can't stand conflict for whatever reason. And that's the thing, being aware when we react, particularly in times of conflict, where are we reacting from? Are we reacting from previous accounts of that, or are we in that moment? When we think about witnessing, when we think about expansive vision, we can often get caught up in the misconception of detachment. of stepping right back and not getting involved. This week, it's an opportunity to be right in it, but to be responsible for what is going on for us and hold space for ourselves in that, so that we can bring forth, almost being the eye of the storm, stepping into the storm, bringing that calm to the situation. Not by changing it. Heads up, it's not by changing it. And we may find at the end of the week that that's where some of the understandable conflict comes from. Acknowledging why we want to change something, where that comes from for ourselves, how we may not be able to hold space for ourselves with some of the things that we are witnessing, taking that awareness, doing something about it, so that when we come into a situation, it is about allowing that situation to unfold. It is about allowing that situation to create whatever it needs to create now, not based solely on our interpretation, our wishes, our vision of it, but a more expanded, multifaceted side of it. Now, that doesn't mean stepping back and doing nothing, but it doesn't mean changing everything either. Finding that balance that works for you, and it's going to be individual for everybody. On the Sunday, we have the Ace of Coins, but again, it is reversed. So this new physical beginning may not come in the way that you expect. Don't put all your eggs in one basket this week, because that can really be where you feel conflict. So, you may think, well, this is the job that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And actually, the universe is like, well, you've kind of reached your peak in that. It's not about changing who you are, but perhaps taking that into a different modality, into a different venture, I want to say, on the Sunday in particular. We cannot do any of that if we don't acknowledge what is going on. So it may feel as if things are topsy-turvy this week, because one, heads up, they are. But two, it's about our ability to really be with what is occurring. Only in uncertainty do we figure out what it is that we know. So major arcanas this week, we have the Lovers, the Tower, the Emperor, the Tower, and the Hanged Man. And the Lovers, the Emperor, and the Hanged Man are upside down. I'm really, really tempted to turn it over, because that would make it easier, right? If I could turn things up right, if I could give people all the answers that they want and the clarity that they seek. However, I'm being made very aware. Again, it's coming back to that conflict energy. Be okay in conflict. Conflict is your body saying, I'm not okay with this. But unless you can acknowledge that, nothing is going to shift and nothing is going to change. So the Lovers is upside down, the Emperor is upside down, and the Hanged Man is upside down, because there are choices that may need to be made this week, but there is a lack of direction there. There is a trying to see things from so many different perspectives and trying to do what's right for everybody that isn't quite bringing the shift that is necessary. However, the Tower card is upright, trusting that conflict, surrendering to that conflict, and allowing the answers that you seek to come in. There is 4 of them. It is the foundation that is needed this week. It is about the trust of the environment that we find ourselves in. It is about the connection that we have to our bodies, the connection that we have to the earth around us, the connection that we have to the major fates that are out of our control. Sometimes, so everything that's happening in the world can be devastating. It, of course, and it's so easy for me in my privileged little life to sit in my little room and say, well, we don't need to do anything. I'm not actually doing that. What I'm saying is, things have to come to light to be seen. From there, we can change them. If we react because things are painful and try and stop things from being seen as a result, they go back into the underworld, they go back underneath, and we're not aware of them, and therefore nothing can change. So this week, finding a way that you can hold space for yourself while these changes are occurring, knowing there are decisions that are being shifted that may not have been shifted, and this may be the result of them. There are actions that need to take place that may not have been taking place, and this can be the result of them. There are perceptions of things that we have seen, stories, narratives that we may have been repeating, and this is the result of them. However, rather than berate yourself for thinking, I should have done this and I should have done that, know that that's actually built a fire of conflict within and around you that's going to change it all. We all create differently. We all manifest differently. And, again, going back to the example of the blog this week, my beautiful mother had a way of, life was so hard for her that eventually what that would teach her is to keep getting back up and to keep fighting. And I took that on board, and there's still an element of me that does take that on board. However, I also know from my own experiences there's a different way as well. I'm not going to chuck everything that I've discovered out, out of the window, but I'm not going to let that be the whole way of manifesting. And that's the thing, there's a great opportunity here to shift how we manifest if we want to, if it works for you, if if seeking things out to make you feel that conflict inside and then act on it works for you, great. If going over certain patterns in life works for you to shift them, great. The question is this week, does it work for you? Is it helping you be the most expansive version of yourself, particularly in how you see yourself and the world around you? That's the choice that we're all being faced with. We have 2 sword cards, 1 wand card and 1 pentacle card. Page of Swords and the Queen of Swords. So the masculine here is still pretty immature in its mindset. The actions here are still pretty young. Now that can be spun on its head if we choose to. That can mean that we can do things a bit more with a bit more curiosity and a bit more openness. However, there may also be a tendency for passive aggressive mind games this week, so being aware of them as we're starting to go from Aquarius into Pisces season. It's about using our mind to encourage us back to our emotions, not away from them. Are we doing that? The other side of it is the Queen of Swords. Are we nurturing that? We can all go into passive aggressive, and I don't care who you are, we all have passive aggressive, narcissistic, bypassing tendencies, because life hurts and life is difficult, and we all do what we can to escape that at times. So it's more about nurturing ourselves. When our thoughts come up, particularly in regards to the actions we may or may not need to take, how are we nurturing them? Where are those actions coming from? Where are those thoughts coming from? Are they relevant to the scenario, the situation, the physical present moment that we find ourselves in? Not all is as it seems this week, ourselves included. So there is balance with our mind. Even though it may feel discombobulated, provided we can nurture our actions, or provided our actions nurture our mindset, and being aware of what mindset they are nurturing. We then have 1 wand card, and again it is reversed, so it may feel as if there's no energy. It may feel as if nothing is shifting, nothing is changing, unless we bring in that drama, because that's what we're used to. The invitation here is to find a different way. The choice, of course, is up to the individual. It's the 5 of Wands here, so it is that turning point. But remembering, like the Wheel of Fortune and the Whale card, what goes up goes down, what goes down goes up. We decide what direction that turns based on our actions. So cliche as it sounds, Einstein, you can't change something with the same energy. If something's really shitty, you're not going to change that by adding more. Well, you could, but eventually it's got to get really, really heavy before things will shift. So it's not about bypassing, but having curiosity with the energy that's coming up for you this week. Okay, what would be the opposite? What would be the conflicting energy that I can bring in here? Recognizing the beauty of conflict as well, the devil's advocate type energy, the what we would call Heyoka type energy, the sacred fool, the thunder being type energy. When we think of that tower card, what would change this? It's not going to be the same thing, is it? It's going to be something different that changes this now. Okay, we may feel that it's different. We may feel as if it needs to be different. However, the irony is the 5 of Wands being reversed, it's probably what we've known all along. Then we have the Ace of Coins, the Ace of Pentacles here. And originally this card would be a masculine figure that is holding a big solar disc on its shoulders, almost like the world on its shoulders type energy. However, because it's reversed, what's happening is the earth symbol on the top of the card becomes more of a fire symbol here, or an air symbol here actually, and the coin is down on the earth. So those physical changes this week are coming from embodiment. They're not coming from us do. They're coming from us receiving. Okay, using our body to receive what is occurring as well this week, rather than just what we can do or what we can take. What we can take and what we can receive aren't the same thing, and acknowledging where there may be any imbalances this week and allowing that to cause the necessary conflict. Okay, I'm going to do one card for the week overall, and then we're going to stop. 11:22. That feels like a really nice time to stop. Interesting. Why does 11:22 feel like a nice time to stop? Well, it's half of each other. Numerically, vibrationally, it feels right, and that's the key, isn't it? What is going to make it a nice time for certain things to cease, to stop, to change? Again, these cards are upside down. So we have the King of Cups, and it's not the whole pack. The whole pack is actually upright. So the King of Cups and the King of Wands. We may not know or may not think that we know when the right time to stop or change something is. However, that in itself is what needs to be looked at. Our awareness of that, really feeling into the confidence that is needed in our spirituality and our intuitive senses this week. As we move from Aquarius into Pisces season, it is about opening our mind beyond the logical and the rational to the psychic seers that we're all being invited to step into. Take care, and I shall see you next week.